That is now being challenged not only as a consequence of China's rise, but as a consequence too of the relative decline of the United States. And of course, the 20 years of what's turned out to be pretty unsuccessful warfare in the end, both in Iraq and in Afghanistan, which has reduced the ability of the United States to act on its own or act in the way in which it did for 30 or 40 years after World War II. I have wondered for some time whether, in fact, we are in a form of warfare with China in any event, whether you call it grey war or what have you. It's just that we don't recognise it because it's not by conventional means. It is cyber warfare, disinformation, and so on and so forth. This is quite clearly, as Henry Kissinger has noted, not just a major challenge for the United States, but of course for Australia too. And what we actually do about it, still apart from noting our concerns about what is going on, it is hard to divine, and no doubt this will be part of what the discussions going on with Marise Payne and her counterparts in the G7 Plus meeting that is either underway or about to be underway. But a very, very difficult challenge for Australia and for democracies worldwide, as China shows no signs of stepping back from its increasingly assertive, influential and aggressive behaviour, Ash.
And Jim, a lot of blowback as well, the government facing over the handling of Australians in India. Do you think the government's health advice justification on the flight ban policy, the threats of fines and jail, is that cutting through?
Look, it's a little hard to tell. Certainly there's been significant blowback from predictable sources. It's notable, for example, though, that while the Labor Party has been critical of the criminalisation, noting that the press release from Greg Hunt very late on Friday night noted the sanctions that were contained within the Biosecurity Act, but not opposing the pause in the repatriation flights until May the 15th, which does suggest that they're that the Labor Party at least is a bit wary of coming out against the entire notion, and that may well be reflective of more broad public opinion about the flight ban. But it's interesting too to note that the Prime Minister seems to be as warm as he has ever been to the notion of stepping up standalone quarantine facilities, whether it be the Victorian proposal or the suggestion that came earlier from Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk for something to be set up outside Toowoomba. We note that Howard Springs, the facility there, is being ramped up as well, which does suggest that the Prime Minister is feeling the heat to a degree on this decision. I mean, the point about I can understand why things having got to where they are, the federal government felt it had no option but to ban repatriation flights for a fortnight, but it should never have got to this point. The government was getting significant advice in the middle of last year about the necessity or the possibility or suggesting that they should look at standalone quarantine facilities. Nothing was done. Had that advice been taken at the time, we'd have them in place now, and it may well not have been, I should say, necessary to introduce the drastic steps that we now see of this ban for the next fortnight as far as it goes. So, yes, been a little bit too complacent for too long about the continuing effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, and now better that steps along these lines be taken so that we don't find ourselves in a situation where we have to ban these repatriation flights from vulnerable countries again.
Jim Middleton, appreciate your analysis as always. Thank you.
Always good to talk to you, Ash.